A question for Bob, you can call him at 479-1160 or 349-WCCS, and that being the case, we have a call already. Good morning. Oh, no, we don't. They're off again.
Maybe they'll try back.
I had such high hopes, man. The line was blinking right off the bat. I thought, cool.
And time waits for no one.
And neither does that caller. So here we go. Our conversation again brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. So we're here. We're just past the middle portion of June. It's been a cool summer so far, and I don't know that has any effect on the way things are growing or the types of diseases or fungi that our plants might be susceptible to, but you have an idea of that. So what's going on out there?
Of course, weather affects everything.
Yeah.
Always. So whether it's too warm or too cold, too dry, too wet, all those parameters definitely affect how things are growing, how they're doing. Although in general, right now, for the most part, things seem to be doing pretty well. Even though we did have a slow start to things, for the most part, things are looking okay.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had any big extremes yet. You never want to. Now, there were some bad storms that came through western Pennsylvania earlier in the week. I guess that was when it was.
We could be getting some tonight and tomorrow as well.
Because there were people that got hail, serious hail, that affected crops. Shredded them.
Yeah.
Over in Beaver County, that area, there were some very high winds in Westmoreland County and some other areas that things were looking very good until that happened, and that's pretty devastating for those people that are affected by that.
Possible severe thunderstorms in our forecast today. A couple of questions for you. First of all, in the garden. I've got a great fence around my garden, right? I went out there yesterday, and I was just looking at the garden, and this bunny is in there. It got inside the fence, and when it saw me, it lit out. It went through that fence as if the fence wasn't even there. It didn't even move the fence. I don't know how it did it. It was like magic. But what it was chewing at was the top of the beets plants. Are those beets plants going to be okay if their tops are all chewed off?
If they chew them down to the ground, they're less likely to be okay. Because they've got to regrow new leaves. So if they have enough energy in the plant and the root system's still there, if they can shoot out some new tops, and the same thing can happen easily to cabbage and broccoli.
Well, they love beans. I'm amazed they stayed away from the green beans.
And they are very adept at getting through things and under things. So you might have to tack that down in a few places at the base of the fence just to make it more rigid. They seem to have the ability with the way their head is shaped and their nose that they can just kind of nosedive right under things.
It didn't even move the wire fence.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It just zipped at full speed underneath that thing. I don't know how it did it.
So even just a stake here or there between stakes, just to help firm that up and make it stiffer and make them have to dig maybe to get underneath it.
Well, see, here's the thing.
Groundhogs will do that also.
I've already destroyed about 12.5 wire coat hangers in order to make the stakes. So I guess we're going to have to not hang our clothes up anymore because I got to get that done.
That's right. You got to preserve those crops. Once you lose them, then you have to replant and you lose all that time and have to start from ground zero.
All right. So the beets could come back if we
And
keep the bunny
is there still a little bit of tops there?
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, it'll slow.
Just because I interrupted its lunch, probably.
Yeah. It'll slow them up some.
I mean, he went the whole way out the row. It's very rude. That's what that is.
That's what they do.
Here's the second question I have for you today. Of course, we told you about the big underground pipe-laying operation over the winter. So we had to get the repairs done on the underground pipes. So that was done. Now I have this patch. It's about 10 feet wide and maybe 40 feet long that we finally got the mounded up dirt settled. And then we ran over it with the little skid steer. And now that's got everything compacted. How much do I have to scratch up that ground in order to get grass seed to take hold there?
Not too much.
No.
Just enough to get a seed bed there that the grass seed are pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
Most seeds we don't want to plant them more than 2 times their diameter in depth. If we plant them too deep, they'll try to germinate, but then they'll rot before they can get to the surface.
Okay.
So with grass seed, it doesn't take much. A lot of times we can just scatter them on the top of the ground, and even just press them in, just roll the surface after you do that, and that's enough to let them germinate.
Compacted dirt like that is not going to prevent those roots from getting down through.
We can compact things like concrete, and then they won't grow. But just if the ground is firm, and just loosening them up that top, even with a hard rake, just enough to get some loose soil there.
I was doing that the other day.
Yeah, and then just seed it. And for the most part, it's good to cover it, with a little bit of compost, a little bit of soil, even mushroom manure.
Yeah, I told you last week.
And straw as well.
I reserved 5-gallon buckets full of mushroom manure to put on it because I knew I'd have this coming.
Yep.
So before I settled the garden in with the mushroom manure this year, I pulled that out of there.
And the other thing that can happen is when, say, a storm comes through and we get heavy rain, if we overwork that and make it too loose, then it's much more prone to be able to be that soil to be eroded off the surface.
Okay.
So just doing enough to get the seed to have good contact with the soil, and not overdoing it should lead to success.
I like the way you qualified that. Huh? Should lead to success, but knowing you, it probably won't. Okay, so those were my 2 questions around my house. The other question that I had today was about, we visited this topic a little bit earlier in the year, and that was trimming off the low branches on the tree to make it easier to get under with the mower. And is this now the time to do that? Has the sap stopped running enough that now I can do that and not cause a little diaper problem for the tree?
Yes, by now that initial flow of sap is slowed down, and you could do that at this point to limb those up. And that's a good point regarding pruning. Any spring flowering shrubs that you might have, so the forsythia, the lilac, rhododendrons, any of those could be pruned, could have been pruned as soon as they were done flowering. But the sooner you get that done, then we tend to preserve the flower show for next spring.
Yeah.
Because the new buds, the new flower buds, as well as leaf buds, will be put in place over the summer. So when that plant goes dormant this fall for winter, the buds for the following year have been formed at that point.
Okay.
So if we get in there and do that now, before those are formed, then they'll form on what's left of the plant. And
rhododendron in particular is one that tends to overwhelm, and it can swallow up a whole house if you let it get to that stage. So when people want to trim them back, can they do that severely, and can they save some of those prunings and maybe find a way to start them in another place?
Yes, you can do that. And most rejuvenation type pruning, where we would cut a plant off at the ground, and a lot of multi-stemmed shrubs you can do that too, but we like to do that during the dormant season.
Okay.
So during the winter months is when we do that hard pruning, because there's less stress on the plant at that point. If we do it during the growing season, then that plant's trying to function. It has leaves on there. It's trying to photosynthesize, make its own food with the help of the sun. And if we remove all that foliage off of there, then that really stresses the plant.
Okay.
But even with those things like forsythia and lilac, those typically we can prune back and take 1 or 2, maybe even 3 of the oldest stems in that plant, remove them down to the ground at this time. Because that helps tell the plant that, hey, we removed a couple
I've got room
branches,
for you.
So that stimulates growth from the base of the plant to replace those branches over time. And it can take, a couple years to do that. So it's better to do some annual pruning, or even every other year to do that type of pruning on those types of plants, just to keep them, because you can control the height, You can control the density of the plant, and then you keep it younger. So essentially you have a collection of branches in there that are younger, and then those will produce better buds, better floral displays every spring, versus just letting it go. And there's a number of lilacs especially that they're just left go, and we never prune them, so they get 10, 15 feet tall oftentimes. And they might only have 2 or 3 trunks there that get pretty large in size. And over time, then the growth slows down. You don't get as many flowers on them over time because that plant has to spend more time just keeping the infrastructure in place. So there's less less branches, less new growth, and so you don't get as nice a flower show off of those plants. And that's one of the primary reasons we have those plants.
All right. So there you go. Anybody wants to know anything more about plant and other issues such as the extension handles? 465-3880.
Yes. If you have hemlocks, just take a look at them. Very likely that they have that hemlock woolly adelgid. It just seems to be running rampant right now around the area.
Oh, yeah?
And that can severely affect those plants, cause them to lose needles over time, and even maybe kill the plant after several years of infestation of that. So depending on the size of your plant and how well it's been taken care of, just take a look at that. It is treatable, but if you have it, you should deal with it sooner rather than later.
So woolly mammoth disease on your hemlocks. Gotcha. He is Bob Pollock from the Extension Service. It's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160.